Hey, what's up, you scumbags? Doing a little mini episode here. Boy and his dog. Boy's not here right now. He's at work. He's got to pay the bills. He's got to buy the dog food, But if you guys could just not tell him I'm actually a wolf, not really sure what the laws are on keeping a wild, deadly animal in your home. But hey, he lets me live there and keeps buying me dog food. So woof woof. But right now, we're going to do a little review. It is about the new ESPN documentary on the one, the only, the nature boy, Rick motherfucking Flair. Woo! Now, the first thing you're going to hear repeatedly from a lot of reviews, and you're going to hear it from me, is this thing is brutally honest. How brutally honest do you say? Well, at one point, Ric Flair talks about getting an exam from his doctor, and the doctor asks him how often he masturbates, and he says 2 times a day. And that's on top of all the drinking and all the sex and everything else. So anybody who, willingly gives up how much they whack off a day, much respect. The documentary is going to be good if he's that open with that. Um, if you're already familiar with Ric Flair and you've seen various DVDs that they've put out, you're going to kind of know already a lot about this, but the things that you don't know about are very good, but it's depressing at the same time. They get more into this family life. His first wife hates his fucking guts still. His kids talk about him being gone all the time. The only kids he really paid attention to, it seems like, was his son Reed and his daughter Ashley, who's known as Charlotte Flair, the greatest female wrestler to ever live. And they go through the tragedies of his son Reed dying of an overdose, and pretty much it seems like the only success he's had as a father is Charlotte. Uh, but if you read between the lines, he kind of let his kids get out of control and knew what was going on. So hopefully, he, whatever, she admits to being a partier quite a bit. So hopefully that's been addressed, to where there's no more tragedies in the family. That type of stuff. But there's also some good animated things that they accompany stories that are told long ago. Obviously, they don't have footage of it, so they put little animated cartoons to show those things. So that's pretty cool, especially if you've already heard this stuff before. It's a different way of looking at it. But overall, it's very well put together. Vince McMahon does not make an appearance in it, and again, if you're gleefully admitting that you jerk off twice a day, how much you drink, how you are belligerent, you refuse to get help, you don't have a problem, and then you say you do have a problem, but you just don't want to get help. That doesn't really put his employees in a good light, in a good environment, especially where it's clear that he's been allowed to do this for long periods of time and still keep his jobs and whatever. So of course I don't think Vince McMahon's going to be on there, especially after past tragedies with Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero and other people passing away in bad events. But you do near the end, there's a very interesting part about Triple H being very honest with him about his problems and him getting help, and that's something I had never heard of, and I think it's amazing that they kept that a secret, that he went to rehab, because I didn't know about that, and I didn't know he was forced into it. And the language and the way that Triple H and them tell it, on how it was presented to Flair of him needing help, is very brutal, blunt. So that's very interesting that his friends, that, obviously Triple H and Shawn Michaels and that whole company loves him, but it got to a point where they were, sick and worried of him, and it got to a breaking point. So to see that, and then to know that he got help, that's actually pretty good. But overall, before I start rambling, the documentary's pretty good. Check it out. If you're not a fan, you might want somebody with you who kind of knows the history, because they kind of go through a few things, and I think they assume that 80-90% of the people that are watching are Ric Flair fanatics, which they probably are, but but for the other 10%, if you don't know too much of what's going on, have somebody who's a wrestling fan with you to fill in the blanks. or you could just Google it. So that's my little mini review of Ric Flair 30 for 30. I give it I'll get, to me as a wrestling fan, I give it a 6. But if I didn't know anything, I would give it a 8. But again, there's been so much material about Flair put out. If you're a fanatic of Ric Flair or classic wrestling, you're already gonna know a lot of this. But again, it's good to see the personal stuff, to see that he got help, and to see that he survived this recent health scare, which it would have been a tragedy. And that shows you gotta love your icons when they're around, man. You can't wait until they're gone and then say, oh, I was their biggest fan. No, you gotta cherish them and celebrate them while they're around. So check that out. Again, it's called ESPN 30 for 30, The Nature Boy. And we will try to have a show before the end of this week, me and the boy, when he's not at work. And we are going to review the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. And that should be a good time. Hopefully for one person, for whoever watches this. But hey, you sons of bitches have a good night. Try not to drink drive too much. And if you do, try to just swerve off the road into a ditch instead of smashing head on into someone. And have a good and pleasant night, motherfuckers.